Hello, and I'm Dr. Bill Johnson, formerly the chief scientist in the area of maintenance human factors for the FAA. I'm still working in that capacity as drbillj.com, as you can see in the background. I want to, first of all, as a board member of the International Federation of Airworthiness, I'm really delighted that IFA has put together this little video to talk about the International Day of the Mechanic over on this side in the U.S., where it's the Charles Taylor Wright Brothers Mechanics Day. And I guess I'd like to talk about two things. Probably most importantly, the fact that the engineer in Europe, the aviation maintenance technician in the United States, it's a profession. It's every bit as much of a serious profession as a lawyer or a doctor, and it carries a lot of responsibility. And as an A&P mechanic for 50 plus years, I take pride in that certification. And I think any one of you that has the certification or is working towards it, those of us that have it, remember when we were awarded the certification or passed a type rating, we were really proud of what we did. And I think we should continue to take pride in that. In fact, I want to take pride of it officially by saying one of the awards I won in my career, I actually pinned it on to talk to you, and it's my Charles Taylor Award, which of course in the States is 50 years as a mechanic. For a lot of my 50 years, I worked on mechanics' heads, but FAA decided that was certainly worth, they don't have a manual, and sometimes they're more complicated than internal combustion or turbine engines. When they backfire, it can be in any way. I guess turbine engines will have a compressor stall, recips might have a backfire, and God only knows what happens to mechanics' heads. But again, the Charles Taylor Award made me particularly proud to be an A&P mechanic. Now, I sort of asked myself in the anniversary of the worldwide, the anniversary of mechanics, what should I do personally as a mechanic, or what might you do as we renew ourselves this year? And I think one thing that would be very valuable is put some emphasis on peer-to-peer support. The same way professional sports teams give one another tips about the other team or about how you played that day, we might be able to start up a culture where it's okay to remind your fellow workers to wear safety equipment, or remind them that really you ought to be following the procedure a little closer than you did on that last job. And not in an adversarial way, but in a professional support way. Another thing that I think would be a good idea, I'm saying this to myself and to you as well, is there is really a future shortage of aviation maintenance technicians, of aircraft engineers. And that shortage is not going away. Artificial intelligence might help us troubleshoot, help us with fault diagnosis, but it's not going away. Aviation is going to continue to need mechanics. So I think we should do our best to say a word or two to younger people if we can. If there's an opportunity to talk to a school, do it. If there's an opportunity to bring young people to your workplace, consider that. You probably have more solutions than I do, but find a way to congratulate yourself for being a qualified technician and congratulate one another and take pride in our profession. Thank you. It's just, again, a nice opportunity for IFA to permit me to congratulate you and to all of us that work in this aviation maintenance field. Thanks.
Charlie Taylor, being the Wright Brothers mechanic, was in a very unique position. And most people overlooked this or never even knew it. And I didn't know it as an early mechanic. In school, they never mentioned Charlie Taylor. They always mentioned the Wright Brothers. And so it was much, I had 25 years in the business before I knew who Charlie Taylor was. But then after studying Charlie Taylor and the information that was out in the public about his life, it became a very interesting person. Now, one of the things that jumps out is how talented he was as a mechanic. And the thing that always baffled me about what he did was building that engine. The Wright brothers wanted an 8-horsepower engine. He didn't think it was enough, so he didn't even tell them. He built them a 12-horsepower engine, and they barely got off the ground. But the crankshaft for that engine, he built with a file. He didn't even have a lathe that could turn that thing down. He built it with a drill, drilled out the block of steel, chiseled it out, filed it away, and made a crankshaft out of it, which is just truly amazing. But that's not all the talents that he had. And I've never been able to get a good answer to this, but it does sound logical. So the Wright brothers were down in North Carolina flying their airplane, but the shop and all the bits and pieces were up in Dayton, Ohio. And the Wright brothers would crash the airplane down in Kill Devil Hill with their experiments, and they'd call Charlie up that they needed pieces for the wing. And Charlie would put those pieces together and send them down. And that is a very early example. I remember, this is 1901, a very early example of standard parts, which nobody in the world was using. And I often ask the question to people that might help me, and I've never gotten an answer. Early on, after the Wright brothers started to fly, Henry Ford became very interested in the airplanes, the Wright brothers, and then Charlie Taylor, to the point where he actually recreated the workshop that Charlie Taylor had in Ohio, and it's part of the Henry Ford Museum in Michigan. To this day, it's still there. But one of the things that when you start looking at all of that brings you to the point where did Henry Ford get the idea for standard parts for the Model T? He already had a relationship with Charlie Taylor. He already knew about the work down and sending parts from Ohio down to North Carolina. Did that idea not have its beginnings in the workshop of Charlie Taylor? Now, we will never know that, but boy, it sure does point in that direction. Now, today's mechanic lives in a different world, and it really hinges on his knowledge, his skills, his abilities, and his ethics, because there's nobody watching over most of us when we're doing our work. It's our word, it's our signature that we put on the dotted line that says that this work was done in accordance with the procedures and that the airplane is okay for flight. Airworthiness, in a word which most people don't understand, but airworthiness to a mechanic means that the airplane is in a condition to fly and fly safely. So, and that requires the skills, the knowledge, the ability, and the ethics of the mechanic.